Welcome back, Legendary Potato here, and today I'm going to be starting a brand new series for Universal Minecraft Editor. That's right, Universal Minecraft Editor. I'm going to be doing tons of cool modding videos on this series. And so what exactly is this series? Well, I'm going to be transforming this very basic looking server thing. It's kind of supposed to be a server, just believe me on that one. And I'm going to be adding tons of cool mods that you can add to your own server worlds or whatever you want to do, of course, and demonstrating how I would add it into my worlds and what exactly I would do. And it'll kind of create this sort of server setting over time. So with that said, hope you guys all will enjoy the series, but let's get right into it here. So let's say we spawn into this world for the first time. So we spawn in with just a map, nothing too interesting going on. So our inventory is usually pretty blank, usually has the map, pretty standard stuff. But let's say I want to give the player something to start off with. And so what I could do is leave a chest that has a bunch of stuff for the player. But obviously, there's a lot of problems with that. First of all, players can take more than they're supposed to take, or take less than they're supposed to take, or completely miss the chest, and that just causes a lot of problems. It's kind of messy, you get the idea. Or what I could do instead is I can have every single player that joins the world for the first time spawn it with a custom set of stuff, so that when they join, they'll have everything they're supposed to have, and they can immediately start playing on the server immediately. Which one sounds better to you? So let's get started with that. I want to create a custom GRF spawn equipment so that for my server, players spawn it with certain predetermined items, and so they can go ahead and join and immediately play on the server. I don't have to go and give them stuff or put stuff in a chest. They're going to spawn in, and that's all I have to do. I don't have to worry about it further than that. So let's go ahead and load up Universal Minecraft Editor, and let's set something up here. Okay, so now that we've loaded up our world, let's go ahead and add in some custom GRF. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the diamond button, and we're going to come over to GRF Editor. So the second one right here, the specialty mod, we're going to click on that. And so that's going to give us tons of GRF options here for whatever we want to do. So let's go ahead and enable player defaults, which will then enable us to do all of these things here. So we can go ahead and touch up things as we'd like. And so for our server, we're going to do something not too complicated. We're going to modify the inventory so that way we can have custom armor or whatever we want to do. And so for our server, we'll probably have some basic armor, maybe some basic tools, so that when the player spawns in, they'll have all of this stuff ready to go. And so the only thing we have to take note of is that this spot right here will be dedicated to the map. So they'll be able to have the map right there when they spawn. So we're not going to touch that one, but anything else we can touch freely. So let's go ahead and add some armor to our player. Okay, so I just gave them some basic chainmail armor, but if I want to be extra, then I could just delete the item or change it. So let's say I want to do something more like a monster spawner, then what I could do is I could totally just throw a monster spawner on them like that. And there we go. So if you want something weird and unique, you could do a monster spawner. But if the player does take it off their head, they will not be able to put it back on, unfortunately, or if they die. Next, I want to give the player some tools and some food to start off with. So this will just be a basic thing for every player. So I want to go ahead and give them a diamond sword. So we'll go ahead here and put in a diamond sword just like that. Actually, so let's say I want to start them off with something like a tool or an item. I'll start them off with this sword. I'll give them a wooden sword to start off with, and so that'll be a very basic tool to use. They're probably not going to use it for very long, but the idea is it's just starting equipment to have, and so I can fill in with wooden tools, and I'll probably give them some sort of food. So for the food, I'm going to give them apples, but I'm going to change the count right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the count to 16. So that means they will spawn with 16 apples in their inventory. If I click that, as you can see, it is now identified as 16 apples right there. So we have a sword, pickaxe, shovel, and an axe. Very basic stuff for any sort of server, like a prison server, for example, just giving them some tools, apples, and whatever else they need. If you plan on using some sort of currency later on your world, it might be a good opportunity to give them some sort of starting thing here. Maybe to trade with a villager, some sort of starting villager, or some sort of kit so that they can start off with that as well if you really want to. But with GRF, you really don't need to start them off with a kit. If you can give them everything in their inventory, then they should be just fine there. But if you want to go ahead and give them some sort of currency, then that might be a good thing too. So whatever you happen to use, if you use something like paper, then you can just go ahead and throw paper right in their inventory, and you can be good to go. But I don't really need any paper. Ooh, that's not paper. There we go, that's paper. So as you can see there, if I want to have paper, then I can't do that. But I'm not going to add it in my case. I'm also going to change the spawn point, and this is actually very important because if we don't change the spawn point to what this is, they'll spawn 64 blocks at 0 and 0. And so since my world is on super flat, very low, this is just going to instantly kill the player from a large fall. And so what we can just do instead is set it to about 10, which should be about where the spawn areas. I set mine to be at the exact origin. But just make sure your spawn point is identical or exact where you want it to be, so that then you don't run into any sort of problems when players spawn in the world. Now let's say I want to go ahead and enchant something. Let's say I want to enchant the tools, or I want to enchant the armor, whatever I want to do. And so this is GRF editing, so it's actually going to be different than the standard enchanting. There's no real quick mod in order to enchant something, and so we'd have to do that manually. So let's go over here to the advanced tab, and what's going to have is it's going to have these tabs here. If we open up the update player, then it'll give us all of the add items here. So this basically tells the rules what it's going to be adding into our inventory, and so as you can see, it's going to be showing us everything that we added just before in the player default. All of this right here is now listed as add item. Now if I want to go ahead and add some sort of enchantment, I'm going to figure out what item is which, and then I'm going to add some tags to it. So these first three are actually the armor. So if I want to go ahead and add some sort of enchantment to the armor, I can go ahead and use the paste bin link. I'll put the paste bin down in the description below, but basically it allows us to paste in an enchantment tag here. So it'll give us add enchantment, and then it'll give us these details here, which we can then go ahead and modify to our liking. So let's say I want to add unbreaking to this. So this is currently ID 16, which is going to be sharpness. And so sharpness is not going to be very helpful on our armor. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change it to the unbreaking one, which is going to be 34. So I'll go ahead and put it in right there, and it'll allow us to do that. So thank you to Overrise LP, of course, for the paste bin for this. So basically it just quickly adds the enchantment there. So he's the one who made the paste bin, just quickly adds that there. So we can then go ahead and actually copy the one. If I want to do this on my other armor, I can just quickly go ahead, copy it there, and then I can just paste it and paste it. So that will be for my armor there. And I believe this is the monster spawner here, so I don't really need to add any sort of enchantment. I mean, I guess I could if I want to have the glowing effect, I can just easily do that as well. And then I'd be all set there. So let's say next I want to enchant the sword. We'll go ahead and paste in something here. So I had an enchantment has unbreaking, so let's say I wanted this thing to never break, I could do that. But in this case, I do want this sword to eventually break, so let's go ahead and change this enchantment here. So what we'll do first is we'll change the enchantment ID. We'll change this one back to 16, so this one will be sharpness. So there we go. So now we have 16. But I also want to change the level of this, because right now the level is the maximum value being 32,000, which is an insanely high number. But let's say we don't want that level. Let's say we want something a little bit more reasonable. Let's say I want to do sharpness 1. Let's say I just want to have a sharpness 1 wooden sword for when you start. And so every player will spawn sharpness 1 on their wooden sword right there. And so now I've just modified the enchantment level as well. So sharpness level 1 on the wooden sword right there. So I'm pretty happy with the enchanting I've done here, although I could modify anything to my liking if I would like. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything looks good. I don't want to touch anything else, of course, but if you wanted to modify rotation, health and food, whatever you wanted to do, then you can modify those as well. But I'm pretty happy with these, so I can go ahead and close out of this. And so if I want to guarantee that I'm going to be able to join and have these, I'm going to delete my player upon save. So basically the next time I load up this world, my player will be deleted. It'll be like spawning in the world for the first time. And so that means is that my player is going to spawn in with all of this stuff here. And so if you have multiple players on your world, go ahead and delete them too, so that then they can get the GRF stuff. that you just added right here. And so that's all you got to do. So when I load back up the world back on my console, I'm going to see is that I'm going to have all this armor on, enchanted wooden sword, and the rest of this stuff all in these slots. And of course I'm going to have the map here as well, but that one's just not showing right now, just because that's kind of more hidden, but that usually always spawns. And so now that my player's deleted, everything looks all good. I can go ahead and save my world and load it back onto the Xbox. Okay, so now that I'm back on the world, let's go ahead and check out what we've got. So right here it looks like we got our armor and the monster spawner there, as well as our sharpness sword. And so it looks like everything is the way we intended it, as well as the map that spawns there by default. So all of our tools, all of our apples, all of our armor. And it looks like the monster spawner never got an enchantment, but that's okay, it doesn't even need one. But as you can see, Unbreaking 1. So all of these say Unbreaking 1, but I can assure you that they're actually Unbreaking at the maximum value. And so the reason it displays as Unbreaking 1 is because it doesn't have a way to display Unbreaking 3,000 or 30,000. So it just displays it as Unbreaking 1. This sword is actually sharpness 1. I actually made it sharpness 1, and everything else looks good. And so this applied to me. I deleted my player, so when I spawned into the world for the first time, at least in quotes, I spawned in with what everybody else will spawn in with. So if I were to invite somebody else into the world, they would spawn in with all of this stuff as well. I would invite somebody to demonstrate this, but currently I'm not even connected to Xbox Live, so take my word for it. You guys saw me spawn in with all this stuff, and I can't possibly put on a mob spawner without some sort of GRF or some sort of modding my inventory beforehand. So I can assure you guys this works for every single player that joins, as long as you've deleted every player that's joined beforehand. That's only episode number 1 of this series. I'm going to be adding a lot more stuff to this dummy server here, and so it'll just be kind of a tutorial series on how you guys can make your own servers and some basic stuff that you can do to make your servers a lot better. So yeah, this world's pretty bland, but by the time we're done with it, there's going to be so much crazy stuff with it. It's going to be pretty amazing. But with that said, hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. Of course, if you did, make sure you do leave a like on it and subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. And if you guys want to see more videos just like these, turn notifications on so you get notified of when that next one goes live. But with that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys, and peace out.